A national industrial court in Abuja has ordered the Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Allocations Commission to review the salary structure of judges immediately. Arise News' Tunji Olanipekun compiled the report.
Concerned about the poor condition of service for judicial officers in the country, Sebastian Horn, a senior advocate of Nigeria, decided to take action. He filed a case at the National Industrial Court, joining the Attorney General of the Federation, the National Assembly, and the Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Allocations Commission as respondents. In the course of this hearing, attempts were made to reach out of court settlement. These attempts, however, failed. Justice Obaseki Osage, in a considered judgment, eventually found in favor of the plaintiff. The court held that the current salaries and allowances of judicial officers in the country are not only abysmally low, but embarrassing. The court consequently ordered government to put machinery in place for the immediate review of salaries and allowances. The new salary, as ordered by the court, will see the Chief Justice of Nigeria earn a monthly salary of 10 million naira, while other justices of the Supreme Court will take home 9 million naira. The President of the Court of Appeal is to earn 9 million naira, while other justices of the Appellate Court 8 million naira. Chief judges of both federal and states high courts earn 8 million naira, while the judges of the federal and states high courts 7 million naira. The judge held that the refusal of the federal government to review the judicial officers' salaries and allowances for 14 years was unconstitutional, unlawful, and should be compelled to do the needful.
Do you know that for 14 years they have been on the same salary? Do you know that? 14 years. It reminds me of the incident in the Bible involving Jacob and Laban. Laban reduced this man's salaries for 10 times as good as he was. That's what we're doing to the judges. And at the same time, we go on blaming and criticizing them. So the judgment of this court is that the Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Commission should review the salaries of the judges and the justices. And I make appeal to the Attorney General of the Federation and the Chairman of the Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Commission to see to it that this judgment is implemented immediately. Yes. Now, I put this question to you, pressmen, because for 14 years you have been here, the judges have been receiving the same salary, the naira has been going down all the time, and you kept quiet. Why?
I have always said that they are living on very poor salaries and emoluments. Today is a watershed. Today is the hallmark of a new dawn in the justice sector of this country. I believe that this fight is not personal. This fight is for everybody in Nigeria. Because without the judiciary, there can be no Nigeria. That is the hope of the common man. And the judges are suffering, the justices are suffering. I know how much I'm earning as a senior advocate of Nigeria, and I also know how much they're earning. How can they discharge justice without fear or favor? Yet they've been trying. So this judgment by this courageous judge must be implemented. I also join in calling the Attorney General of the Federation and the Chairman of the Revenue Mobilization, Fiscal and Allocation Commission to enforce this judgment forthwith as ordered by my Lordship. Anybody standing in the way of this judgment does not mean well for the judiciary.
Justice Obaseki Osage lamented that it is unfortunate that justices and judges who are ministers in the temple of justice have become victims of injustice in the country.
Well, let's say congratulations to the bench, but there are concerns if government will enforce the judgment considering the financial position of the federal government at this time. Well, Jibrin Okutepa, senior advocate of Nigeria, joins us now to discuss these issues. Thank you so much for joining us. You have that smile. I hope I did not murder your name.
And this one, well, you have tried. This Okutepa.
Okutepa, thank you.
Yes, you have done well.
Okay. Congratulations in order, or is it too early to celebrate?
Well, in a society where the rule of law holds sway, I think we deserve to be congratulated because the judiciary is the hope of the common man. and women too in our society. But this was a case of their lordships who are supposed to and who have been saddled with constitutional responsibility to give justice to those who have been oppressed. Yet, in the discharge of their constitutional duties, they were being oppressed and injustice was being meted at them. As you have heard, for 14 years, these Nigerian judicial officers were stagnated and were on the same salary scale and salary level. In some cases, you see judges being given to Kumbo cars, their working condition very deplorable. Indeed, the hygienic environment in which Nigerian judges work, if not because of the kind of character they have, the kind of training and discipline they have, I think the level of corruption in the judiciary would have been worse than useless. But because of the discipline, how much is, like you heard, how much is the salary of no judicial officer in Nigeria takes home up to 1 million naira?
A month.
A month.
Even a senior advocate of Nigeria like yourself?
I'm not a judge. So I charge my professional fee.
Right.
But they don't charge professional fee. They wait for government to pay them because they are in the employment of government. And then you are expecting them to deliver judgment, justice in judgment, undiluted, pure, on an empty stomach.
Like Caesar's wife, the judiciary, judges are expected to be above board.
Yes.
What you're saying is that with these salaries, it may not be fair to expect them to be above board. I will let you address that, but who should really compel? I mean, who should enforce this? Because it's one thing for the judge to, give that order to RAMFAC, the National Assembly and all others who are supposed to take responsibility for this. But the enforcement, how do you enforce this?
Why will you not enforce it? It's an order of court. And when you look at Section 287 of Nigerian Constitution, once an order of court is given, everybody in Nigeria, including the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, is obligated by Nigerian Constitution to enforce and obey. The Honorable the Attorney General of the Federation is a party. I think that whatever had militated against the people who have the constitutional duty to do what they are supposed to do and they failed to do, this judgment is a license for them to do what they needed to do because it's in the nature of mandamus. And mandamus means that where a public officer has a duty to perform, he failed to perform that duty, he can be compelled to do it. And so it's not the first time that the kind of order that His Lordship had been issued. You've seen a lot of people from the time before this regime that you see public officers who have been unjustly removed from office, and order is issued that they be reinstated. And so if we claim to operate under the rule of law and under constitutionalism as you profess to be, and Nigeria is signatory to all manner of conventions that obedience to court order and rule of law, then nobody should find it difficult to obey the judgment.
Okay, but this is not the first time we're seeing court judgments not being followed through or implemented. What are the guarantees? And I ask you this, I mean, in the light of, one, the economic situation in the country. The judiciary is not outside of the Nigerian environment where we see inflation, we see rise in poverty, we're seeing dwindling revenue for the government. And then if we could bring up those numbers again, our producers could bring up the numbers with the industrial court is asking them to be paid 10 million, 9 million, 8 million, 7 million. Can we afford it? Can the Nigerian government afford that at this time?
How many judges do we have in Nigeria? For instance, in the Supreme Court, the Constitution provides that the justices of the Supreme Court should be 21. We have never had a full complement of that court. As of today, in the Supreme Court, including the acting Chief Justice of Nigeria, there are 14. And so, if you multiply 10 million times 14, how much is that? Compared to the mumbo-jumbo salary of political office holders. Are judges also not operating in Nigeria? Are they not going to Wuse market and every other market in Nigeria? Are they not going to Wadata market and other markets in Nigeria? Are they immune from the inflammatory inflations in Nigerian society? Now, Ngozi, you were about asking a question about judges like Caesar's wife must be above board.
Yes.
Now, the principle that I grew up to meet and that is that there should be no appearance of impropriety. But then, like I put an adage the other time that I wrote, if you, and permit me this expression, I mean no insult, if you don't want a he-goat to fornicate, then you must certainly ask the she-goat to cover. So you are now, a judge is taking a peanut, like say 200,000. He's adjudicating over a matter involving trillions of naira. And somebody will now corner him or her aside and say, just give me judgments. How do you then in such an environment expect undiluted justice in judgments? So it is in the overall interest of Nigerian society, your interest, my interest, and the interest of all, that our judges be insulated from manipulating ethics of politicians, which is that don't put these judges to be hungry, because a hungry man does not select the food he eats. So that is why I think that a government like this government that pride itself as operating under the rule of law must obey the judgment. And I agree with you that yes, there are judgments that are not being obeyed. That is where the mass media also came. That's why my elder brother, Chief Kanu Agabi, was asking, where has been the media? And the question he put there is not indicting, but you are the fourth estate of the realm, and under Nigerian constitution, it's your statutory duty and constitutional obligation to inform, educate, and entertain, to let Nigerians know that Nigerian judges are living in a state of penury.
Very interesting. And the question coming in is, why exactly did the judges themselves not approach the court to seek redress and review of their salaries?
If they had done so, it would be, there is a principle of law called nemo cases why. You can't be a judge in your own cause. Right. Now, look, there are three departments of government: the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. By constitutional provision, the judiciary is the only one that adjudicates between persons and group of persons, individuals, and so on and so forth. As of today, before this judgment was delivered by my Lord, Honorable Justice Obaseki, there had been outcry by chief judges of the various states and the chief justice of Nigeria that Nigerian judges are being poorly paid. Nobody listens. And the reason is very simple. The political class want Nigerian judicial officers not to be well paid so that they can have what I call a grip on that the arm of government. Otherwise,
the weaponization of poverty.
Of course, the weaponization of poverty as a weapon to procure an unjust judgment.
But would that be a fair statement? I mean, when you consider that this administration, President Muhammad Buhari, had talked so much about financial autonomy of the arms of government, and he signed even an executive order 10 in that order. It was the Supreme Court who also threw it out and said, this is not known to law and he cannot do that. But let me also ask you, won't it be seen as self-serving for this judge who gave the ruling? Will he not be accused of looking at himself?
Now, let me ask you.
Let
me then ask you, where do we take our dispute to for resolution? The Constitution say it must be the judge. Until Nigerians who are raising this question of you cannot benefit from the judgment you deliver, give us another avenue where the Constitution has provided for resolution of this kind of disputes, then I'm afraid that argument does not appeal to me, because the judgment was not particular about one particular judicial judge. Now, there is also a provision in our law that the judiciary, the chief registrar, can go to court.
Right. So now, this order coming from the industrial court judge is coming barely, a few weeks after the CJN retired, and right after judges in the Supreme Court actually sent in that leaked letter, the leaked memo, where they protested the state of welfare and all of that. Are all of these linked?
They are not. The case was in court before the incident happened, so it cannot be that it is because of the resignation letter, resignation of the former Chief Justice of Nigeria. This case has been in court. It's not a new thing. See, I think what we should interrogate at this stage is, was this judgment a fair deal compared to the salaries and allowances of other arms of government? How much does a minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria earn? He has political aids being paid from Nigerian Treasury. None of these judicial officers have any other aid. It might interest you to note that even in the Supreme Court, they have no research assistants, and you are expecting them to dispense justice without undiluted, without compromise, and you put them. You want a man to trek to Lagos on an empty stomach.
Okay.
So my take is that amount of money, if we compare it to what other judicial officers in other jurisdictions earn, is a peanut.
Okay, but you know, even if this is implemented, that's if the government is not appealing this, if this is implemented, it still seems like, well, it is obvious that the salaries and the wages of the judiciary is subjected to the executive arm of government. So how do we get out of this? Because you make a comment to say, the judges are subjected to the executive, and they are not at par with other arms of government. So it looks like there will always be that rivalry when it comes to allowances, wages, conditions of services. How do we get out of this?
See, when you talk about salaries and allowances of Nigerian workers, the body that is statutorily responsible from reviewing it is Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Commission. It reviews. It's an agency of government. You see, now when you talk about independence of either the judiciary, the executive, or the legislature, there is what is called checks and balances.
Right.
That is why, for instance, in the appointment of Chief Justice of Nigeria, for instance, it has to come from the executive arm of government. It goes to Parliament, and so on and so forth. So, if we have respect and fidelity to rule of law, our constitution, and we are nationalistically patriotic, and we want to we have the interest of one another at heart, we shouldn't have been where we are, because there have been series of reviews of salaries and allowances of political office holders. Now, compared to the number of political office holders and Nigerian judges, how many do we have? At the Court of Appeal, for instance, there are not more than 120.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there.
So, as we leave it here, I'll appeal to the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the Attorney General of the Federation, that this is a golden opportunity for them to write their name in the golden book of record, that for the first time they obey judgments of court without making their lordship subject them to further denigration.
All right, thank you so much, Jibrin Okutepa, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Thanks for joining us on Newsnight.